Imagine this. You have found a multifamily deal that looks like a home run. The pro forma shows 20% cash on cash return, rents are projected to skyrocket, and expenses seem magically low. You get excited, you put in an offer, and you close the deal. Now let's fast forward a few months. Reality hits. Cash is bleeding, expenses are higher than expected. Oh, and those projected rents? Nowhere near reality. Now what happened? You underwrote using pro forma numbers, and that is a recipe for disaster. Look, I've been there, and I've learned the lessons the hard way. Today, I'm going to give you 3 real-world examples on why you should never trust pro formas. These are mistakes I've made, and if you take the lessons to heart, you could save tens, if not hundreds, of thousands of dollars. Number 1, pro forma is a sales pitch. Those pro forma numbers are created by the brokers and sellers to make this deal look as attractive as possible. They do not reflect actual financials. They're designed to sell you the property. Brokers use optimistic rent projections, assuming you're going to achieve the highest possible market rents instantly. They downplay the expenses. They often underestimate maintenance, property management, or even taxes. Vacancy rates are frequently unrealistically low. They ignore the money to stabilize the property. Now let me tell you about a duplex that I bought in North Carolina. I overpaid for the property, but according to the broker's pro forma, the numbers look good. The expenses seemed manageable, and I was confident I could cash flow from day one. But here's what I didn't fully understand. Those expenses don't stop at what's listed on paper. Just a few months after I closed, a flood hit the property, causing over $20,000 in immediate damage. Suddenly, my monthly numbers didn't work anymore. And over time, as more expected costs piled up, higher maintenance, insurance, and overlooked expenses, I was bleeding money every single month. And by the time I sold the property, I had lost over $30,000 on the deal. Why? Because I relied on those pro forma numbers instead of doing my own deep dive into the actuals. If I had underwritten property properly, factoring in real world expenses, reserves, and potential risks, I would have passed on that deal. Now, number 2, pro forma ignores stabilization costs. If you're buying a value add deal, the pro forma absolutely will not reflect the time, effort, and money it takes to get the property whipped into shape. Renovation time, tenants don't magically start paying the top rents overnight. And turnover costs. Those turnover costs can be significant. And on older properties, there are going to be a lot of hidden repair issues that you're not even considering. Lenders don't fund based on pro forma, and neither should you. I once purchased a 17 unit that looked great on paper. The pro forma had high projected rents and low expenses, making it seem like a fantastic deal. But what I didn't fully grasp at the time was the massive cost of stabilization. I had to spend $30,000 to $40,000 per unit just to get the property up to standard. And that alone was a huge unexpected cost. But then I discovered another massive issue. The entire property had drainage problems, and I had to invest another $125,000 just to fix the pipes. Now, these expenses were not reflected in that pro forma. And that's the danger. Pro forma is going to assume everything is perfect from day one, when in reality, it takes time to capitalize and stabilize that property. Now, if I had just underwritten more conservatively, factoring in actual renovation costs and unexpected repairs, I would have either passed on the deal or structured my financing differently to ensure that I had reserves to cover these expenses. Now, number 3, underwriting to actuals protects you from bad deals. Underwriting based on actuals give you a realistic picture of what the property is doing today, not some pie in the sky number pulled out of thin air. You got to make sure to look at the last 12 months of actual income and expenses. Validate the income by reviewing the bank statements and adjust your numbers conservatively, assuming higher expenses and slower rent growth. I once looked at a mobile home park deal where the seller's pro forma numbers looked fantastic. On paper, the park was bringing in a strong monthly income, and the projected rent seemed like a no-brainer. But when I started digging into the actual numbers, I noticed something was totally off. Seller's rent roll didn't match up to what the tenants were actually paying. When I went tenant by tenant, I realized many of them were paying significantly less than what was reported. That meant the park wasn't nearly as profitable as it had been advertised. And if I had trusted the pro forma without verifying, I would have been walking into a cash flow disaster. This is why understanding the underwriting with actuals is so important. Look at those bank statements, verify the lease agreements, and talk to tenants if you have to. Because if the actual numbers don't support the deal, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, at the end of the day, pro formas are just a broker's best case scenario. And if you rely on them, you're making an emotional decision. The best investors do not buy on potential. They buy real numbers and force appreciation through. Now, what are the key takeaways today? Number one, pro forma is a marketing tool, not reality. Number two, stabilization takes time and money. And number three, underwriting with actuals protects your investment. Now, before you buy your next property, remember this. Numbers don't lie, but the pro forma does. Want to learn about how to properly underwrite deals using the real data? Check out the bounce method, where I teach you how to invest with confidence and avoid those costly mistakes. And I'll see you in the next video.